You ever feel the solitude of your creative endeavors? For as much as I love my crafting space, it's time to get out of my basement and into the world. Going to a quilt show by yourself can be intimidating. It's hard to go to any event alone, but it can feel especially daunting when you're interested in a relatively solitary hobby. Quilting can be a great way to unwind and spend time with yourself, but it can also be kind of isolating. I sit alone with my machine and my rotary cutter and my audiobook when I'm quilting. Quilting hasn't always been solitary. In the early days of quilting, women gathered together to create quilts as a group. These quilting bees allowed women to share skills and resources, as well as provide social support. As quilting became more popular, these bees evolved into larger events like county fairs and agricultural shows. And as time has gone on, quilt guilds have really taken the place of bees as day-to-day sewing outlets, especially because it's really hard to sit and chat around the din of sewing machines. As someone who spends a lot of time alone quilting in my basement, I know how hard it can be to get out and do things by myself. I worry about feeling awkward, not knowing anyone, or not being able to find my way around. I also worry about sticking out as young or inexperienced at events like this. But I've learned that it's important to push myself outside of my comfort zone and try new things. Something about knitting has always felt social to me. I learned to knit with my grandma knitting next to me. I sought out knitting groups when I moved to the Midwest, and I fell into a group of friends with many knitters. I've also converted some non-knitters into knitters. You can easily sit around a table and have everyone working on their own project with knitting. Quilting feels different to me. Maybe it's because I learned to quilt during the first few months of the pandemic when everything was an attempt to avoid isolation. Maybe it's because I don't have any friends my age who quilt except in online communities. Knitting is small and portable, and it's easy to talk over the quiet click of needles. It's slow, and I really don't have to pay that much attention to it anymore. Quilting is not those things. The quilting communities do exist, and they are thriving, and this show was an incredible example of that. Some of you watching this may feel the same way about knitting that I do about quilting. Something you've only ever done independently. And I'm not saying you need to jump up and join a guild or teach all of your friends to share in your crafts, but in general, hobbyists are a welcoming bunch. I would be happy to talk to you about your shared hobby, whether that's quilting or knitting or fly fishing or model trains. Back to quilting. Today, there are hundreds of quilt shows held annually, and they showcase a wide variety of quilting techniques, styles, and materials. Some are dedicated just to modern quilting or reproduction quilts or hand quilting. You can take classes on a variety of topics, attend lectures, shop, and get inspiration from others' quilts. Even though I didn't have time to take any classes this year, I really came back inspired after seeing so many quilts and quilters in one place. It reminded me of why I even like going to these events. It's because of the inspiration. Attending an event like this might not seem like a big deal, but it can be a really important step in building a sense of community around your craft. It's easy to get bogged down in the technical details of any hobby, but sometimes it's important to take that step back and remember what inspired you to start doing it in the first place. When I returned to my basement after the show, I felt renewed in my quilting. I was more excited about my projects and more willing to take risks and try new things. I also came home with a couple of pretty cool things. I felt more connected to the broader quilting community, knowing that there were other people out there in my town who share my interests and passions, even if I didn't strike up more than basic conversations with anybody. For me, attending a quilt show helped me remember that quilting can be structured or traditional or modern or bright or simple or improvisational or complex. It can be done with lots and lots of gear and technology, or a simple needle, fabric, and thread. Each quilt tells a story, and being reminded that there are so many others with their own quilting stories was refreshing.